Welcome to the Josh Button Podcast, where we discuss health, wellness, and outliers from society. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Josh Button Podcast, episode 71. Dr. Sharnael, you have my full attention on all the subjects that you are specializing in, first and foremost. But you're an author of a full series of books. You have an amazing YouTube, True TV. I want to know, how did you come to these discoveries that lie outside the mainstream in the first place? What made you start working with people? What is your background? And we'll get into all your modalities after and start breaking it down one by one if we can.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Josh, for having me. I appreciate your work and what you're doing, and any bit of light we can bring to the planet right now is always thumbs up for me, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've always been interested in actual spirituality, to be honest. And I went, so I'm not like religious, I wouldn't say, but just spiritual. But I did go that route of the whole religion thing. My undergraduate, I wanted to go into religion and studied like divinity and religious education. And what's so funny is the religion that I was in wasn't a big fan of women in ministry, and they wouldn't let me major in that. And so I went to my counselor and I was like, well, what can I major in? And I was really also interested in health and education. And, at the time, I worked at several gyms and I worked in cardiac rehab and, just did the whole fitness thing, and I did the training thing. Back then it was aerobics. That's how old I am. So we did fitness, weight training, and also aerobics, which I don't even think that exists anymore, but not by that name anyway. So I went into kinesiology and wellness education, and that was my undergrad, but I still wanted to be in the spiritual realm because I went into kinesiology and wellness, and my husband did too, actually. So we both went to the same school and studied the same things, and he's into all that too, which is so cool. We both worked at cardiac rehab. We saw what happens when people don't make the right choices. We worked with people who went through the heart surgeries and went through all the stuff. And then a lot of times they would just go back to their regular diet and their regular habits. And it was heartbreaking when we would see people, pardon the pun, heartbreaking. We would see people come back, because they were just continuing their cycle of whatever mindsets they had, or whatever environmental habits that they had. And so we would try and we would get them, on good diets and, get them some exercise programs and what have you, but it wasn't always hitting it. And I eventually got out of that. I worked in psych units for a little while as a recreation therapist, which was really fun, getting people, because mentally, when people are going, with stress and different things, as we know, exercise is great for ATP and dopamine and serotonins and all of those things. I did end up doing conference speaking in more of a spiritual venue much later. I did that for 17 years, but in that process, sort of lost myself on my own habits and my own diet and found myself pretty sick. And I did go through all the Western modalities at that initial time because that's all kind of what I knew. I grew up military, and we went to the doctor every year and we got our checkup and we took our little fluoride and, we did all the stuff. And, that's what I knew at the time. And so this is about 2008, I believe. I had already spent about 7 years of being really sick, very overweight. No one could diagnose what was going on. I had probably went to 12 different doctors, multiple referrals, multiple refills, multiple prescriptions, wasn't working. Finally found a doctor in Mississippi who's MD and also had these amazing electronic devices that I had never been exposed to. And he also has a very ND kind of mindset. He introduced me to frequency and some of this stuff. And, in my teaching for that 17 years, I was very drawn to the supernatural and frequency and, the biofield and how we create and, the laws of the universe and, just all of that. So when he started talking about frequency, it was I'm there with you. I'm a geek about neuroscience. I'm a geek about all of this stuff. So he was kind of a bridge for me to bring the spirituality with the health and with the science. My left brain, really likes the data and the experiments and, seeing things over and over and making sure that they still land and seeing where they change. The spirit creative side of me loves to understand how we can use those mechanics to do those things. And so he had things at the time like a beamer, he had PEMF, he had ozone therapy. I mean, this is like way before, now all of these things are so normal, right? What is it? How many years ago is that? But here we are in 2025 and, I have all of these machines and way more. And anytime there's like a new one, I'm like, oh my God, I need that, So I have the red light therapy, biofeedback, hyperbaric chamber, infrared sauna, ozone therapy is one of my favorite. Biofeedback is probably one of my favorite. I just got this device called a neurovisor that I'm really geeking out on. So I don't know what all you're into, but I haven't done the cold plunge. I'm just going to be honest. I know that's your deal. When I was in Hollywood 2 weeks ago for an event, they had a Turkish bath.
Yep.
I don't know if have you been
Not
to that?
here. I haven't. Did that in New York.
Oh, there's one right by you. There's one. Well, it's in Miami Beach. And oh my God, they had the red light rooms. They had the crystal rooms. They had rain rooms where it would rain on you. They had like the mud stuff. They had the like thing they would hit you with the eucalyptic steels. But in every room, they had a cryo room, like a cold room. They had all the saunas and then heat saunas, infrared saunas. But in every single room, there was a cold bath. And either people would be dumping themselves or going in and out and in and out. And I couldn't do it, dude. I was just like, my friends did it. And I was just like, you guys are brave. So I don't know how you do it, but that's kind of how I got here. And I'm still teaching. I write. I try to help as many people just like you through online, because if we can talk to more people than one at a time, I love the one-on-one in my practice, but if I could talk to 100 people at one time and tell them the same thing and they're all off on their own going to do their thing, then, why not?
Absolutely. All right. So a lot to unpack there. Biohackers, I have found, really, really go overboard with checking out every single thing in the entire market that they can. I think that's part of our nature. We love the discovery. And there are certain things that aren't going to register with every person. I'm fully aware of that. So I've got my own like tight knit community. I try and get into my own little freezer, and I've gotten them in sometimes. And my dad in particular, 30 seconds in, he's like, all right, I'm done. That's it.
Wait, you have your own freezer?
Yeah. I made a
room?
freezer, an actual chest freezer, an ice bath. It's one of the easiest hacks and the most affordable hacks to have it on your own property. Yeah, I have instructions for it online, actually. Ben Greenfield has instructions for just modifying a chest freezer on his website. A million different ways to do it at this point. You can actually use ozone to filter. It's great. And it's affordable. I've spent $500 on the thing.
Wow.
And it's big. I sit in it. I get the full body plunge, and I love it. It's not something people love at first, for sure. You know what? Actually, I found the breath work, Wim Hof, and different breath work exercises leading up to it, especially when you're first 6 weeks or so that you're getting into it. It really facilitates, making the process a little bit more gradual, a little easier, and you can acclimate for sure. I'm sure you'd love it if you just went about it in those ways. So, did you go to seminary?
I did go to seminary.
And that's where
I didn't finish seminary, but I did go to seminary in New Orleans, and then I left a little bit after. I didn't want to, but I had this I kept having dreams about leaving, and I kept having this angst about being there, although I wanted to finish because I felt like that was my only path to get to where I wanted. And, I call it the GPS, or the God positioning system. I went to Bible school undergraduate and at LC in Louisiana, and then I went to seminary. But yeah, I'm glad I did now, because I think I would have had, in my experience, I would have had to undo more for me. If it's your path, super cool. And anybody who's watching, I celebrate everywhere where everyone is, and no judgment at all. It just ended up not being later. It took a long time for me to figure that out, but I was like, oh, well, that's why I didn't finish, So you never know why you do what you do.
It's amazing how those things work out sometimes. Like if you're forced into a situation where you just can't go without acknowledging how uncomfortable you are. And I have to change. I must do this. And then, yeah, it might be 20 years down the road. All of a sudden it catches up with you and you're like, oh, that's why. So
Yeah, I mean, do you feel it in your body? Because I would feel it. I feel it
absolutely.
like in my heart. I'm like, something's wrong. Something's not right.
Absolutely. It's the only way I walked away from the most probably difficult things to walk away from because they were so comfortable. Most people looking at me from the outside going, if you're walking away from this career in this moment, you're out of your mind. Or you're walking away from this position and this place you're living at this moment, you're out of your mind. It doesn't really make sense to somebody on the outside, but if you feel it on the inside and you go through that absolutely undeniable discomfort and that angst that you just mentioned, well, yeah, it starts to make sense and you got to do what you got to do. And I think actually we would probably make ourselves sick if we denied that.
It's 100% true. It's living true as we embody truth. Every time we're in our authentic self, we actually have 1,500 chemicals that saturate our cells, organs, muscles, everything. It gives us ATP. It gives us like enhanced immunity. It helps keep us hydrated. It does all of this stuff for our hair and our skin and, our livelihood and our brain, our mental. But the opposite happens when we lie. Actual lying, even if it's like being in the wrong partnership, being in the wrong location, being in the wrong job, going to the wrong grocery store, if you really feel like you're supposed to go to there, like honest to God, chemicals will release that depress the immunity system, that dehydrate you, that cause all kinds of angst in the body and cause fight or fight. And, then we're bathing in cortisol, which does terrible things to like even weight and grays your hair and wrinkles your skin, not you, but a person who's living a lie. And that's why when we see people who are like vibrant and beautiful and living their best life, you could just look at them and go, well, they're authentic versus someone who isn't. You'd be like, oh my gosh, they look 10 years older than they really do. So there's like a lot of age support or vitality and all of these things to embodying that authenticity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all have the choice to walk away from situations that we aren't comfortable in, that we know aren't right for us. It's very difficult and it can be very challenging. And for myself, I was living in New York City and you just mentioned the necessity for truth. And that was one of the places where I just every single day, I couldn't help but acknowledge this is all fake. This is all false. You get into an elevator with somebody and they bring up the weather. Nobody wants to talk about the weather. You bypass people on the street. Nobody looks each other in the eyes. All your relationships are business. What can you do for me? Cut and dry, lie, 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 lie all day. And the logo for the show is Truth Produces Health. And that's how I came to this podcast being a necessity for myself. It was like, you know what? I'm going to talk to people that have the like-minded reality that I do, that understand like we are creating our reality. Everything that's going on up here can be filtered by us and we can make the conscious decision to make choices that will support our best selves. And being somewhat irresponsible with just that voice in your head, I think it just leads you into dark places. And I've been there in my own life. I had to escape it myself.
I really think that's how I got so sick, to be honest. During that 7 years, it was the diet and it was the amount of time that I was working. I was working like 120 hours a week and I was on 6 planes a week. But just like your thing in New York, it's like when you keep hearing that thing or feeling it or whatever, both of just having this like, yeah, slow down or, hey, get out of here or, hey, call your mom or whatever, it's like we're not listening and we don't follow, faith without works is dead. Faith with works or action is life, literally.
So you're taking care of people all over the place. You're flying to different markets to take care of people, and you're extending yourself in a way that it does become easy to kind of release the focus and the need to take care of yourself and listen to those voices and to, set yourself upon whatever your routine is or whatever your methodologies for, taking care of yourself first. It's very understandable, very relatable. And I'm sure that most professionals that go into whatever career they have with good intentions find themselves in that, split of roads at some point in time. And just us to acknowledge it and point people in the right direction is huge. And so I commend you on that. I'm sure that that's one of the big takeaways your clients get from you is to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I think if we are in this space that we are with the health and mental and, physical health, like it's never ending, as far as how many people are in need and just my desire to see people well, my drive to want everyone better, so it's easy to be like, okay, I'm going to take a day off. And then 5 people call and they're just like, it's emergency. And it's just like, oh my gosh, do I take it? Do I be with my family? Do I go outside and sit next to the water? And it's like, even if I have like nothing to do, sometimes that nothing is like that space is required just to like recoup and rest. I get a lot of revelation out of rest. And I've had to literally schedule play and be like big acts, not doing anything today or after this time or before this time, and kind of finding my rhythm of like, I'm not the best at 6 a.m. as I am maybe at 3 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning. And, really figuring out like who I am. And here I am in my piece, well, 50-ish. And I'm like, what am I going to be when I grow up? How am I going to do this? So I'm still trying to figure it out as I go.
The ever-going process. So what brought you to your book, to write your book?
Yeah, well, this is very interesting and odd, and some people might think it's really out there. I actually had this encounter. I think it's a frequency-based thing. I was in this really kind of, I guess, dark night of the soul, really, really searching, really, really seeking, in the middle of this health situation that I was dealing with. I had a partner at the time that left, and we had 3 children. And so I was a single mom, not feeling well. Because of that divorce, I at the time I was on television for 3 years about spirituality. And in this particular religion, it was already not so great for a mom to be a mother or a woman to be in ministry. And then on top of that, it was like a divorced mom. Okay, they were giving me a little slack. And now I was like, yeah, not so much. So all those contracts ended. And I was just kind of like, what next? Where do I go from here? And really, really, I was fasting, I was praying, I was meditating, like all the tools that I knew at the time. It led me to walking in my living room one day. And then there was these 2, I know it sounds crazy. My left brain still, when I say it out loud, I'm like, this is not real. But there were these 2 angelic beings in the living room that had these piles of books, and they just had all this, I guess, downloads, knowledge after this encounter. The books contained all these names of people, how they were healed, what dates they were healed, what they were healed from. It was just records and records and records. And when they were gone, the last thing that one of them said to me, she pointed really, really firm. I'm going to get emotional. She pointed at me and she said, tell them they're not truly living unless they're living true. And then she slammed the books and everything was gone. And I was just terrified, excited, sad, confused, all of these emotions. I was literally visibly shaking. I felt kind of like if I don't know how to explain it, just like a high vibration through my body. I had trouble standing. I had to sit. I was very much, because I am very science, I'm very left. And I was just like, okay, did I just make that up? Am I crazy? Did that just happen? Am I in a dream? Am I going to wake up? All of this, I had taught on dreams and visions and how to get more and how to be more in tune with that intuition. And one of the things is write it down. So I immediately grabbed paper and I started writing down like formulas and words that they had said that I didn't even know the definition of and or didn't know if I make all of this up. And yeah, I put it all in a book and I haven't woken up yet. We might still be in a dream, who knows? And also I've been using the formulas that they've given me, not just for myself, to help reverse some things going on with my health and also just life. And abundance is a big one. Money, we can make money. Well, not legally, but we can create money. And some people do, but anyway, yeah. So it's conscious language. I started understanding about like our thoughts and our words and just how our body works to create better. Yeah. So it's all in a book, and I've helped, I don't know how many thousands of people. I always tell people, when you read the book, report your miracles to me. And people do report their miracles to me. And I get every morning, I wake up to emails of saying, hey, I read your book, and this check came in the mail. I read your book, and I'm back with my partner. I read your book, and I got the job of my dream. I got 5 offers today on so-and-so house or so-and-so job. And I love waking up to my emails and seeing like what everyone's excited about, and somehow being a little bit a part of that in some ways. But that does go back to my whole entire purpose, living true, and yours as well, it seems like. And my practice is called Living True Wellness because of that.
So are you labeling this manifestation, or are these miracles getting a different terminology?
Miracles to me are anything that someone perceives. A lot of people, that's a pretty broad term. But yes, manifestation and or creating. I mean, we are creatures and we create, and we are in the image of something, source, universe, God, whatever you want to call whoever made us. Something did it. And when we use those laws and we use the technology, then we are creating one way or another. We're either going to create with strategy and consciousness and on purpose, or we're going to think everything's happening to us, and we're just going to let the subconscious put the equations out and bring back whatever comes. And we're going to keep thinking, this is still happening. Oh my God, these crazy patterns. Why does he keep doing this? And what's funny is, in my past life, before this exchange, I literally thought everything was happening to me. I would literally say, he did that, or why is he doing this, or why is she doing that, or why does this happen? And I would change jobs or change locations or whatever and think, oh, it's going to be better now, I'm going to start over. But we would just continue I would use whoever came in next to do the same thing, because people will only submit to our lowest common denominator. And whatever equations we're putting out, that's what we're going to get a match to. We only get what we are. And what I've also found, Josh, which is so interesting, is working with people with parasites, physical parasites, fungus, things like that. If you are a host of anything, that also has a signal, and those signals go out. So a lot of times people have all these weird things going on, and I'll check them with biofeedback, and I'm like, you need to do a parasite cleanse. And they think, well, what's that got to do with anything? And believe me, if you kill whatever isn't supposed to be there, and you could have your own pure vibration of love or peace or integrity or authenticity, and there aren't those equations mixing in and taking away, not to mention nutrients, absorbing whatever, those are physical things. But on an energetic level, we attract and or only let in what we get a match to with what we're radiating out, because this biofield bio radiates and magnetizes. So fungus is a parasite, and it basically sends a signal, this person is a great host, take advantage of them. And people will take advantage, maybe on purpose, but oftentimes not even on purpose. They'll just find people or bring people in who are at that lower vibration, and then they're blaming or not aware that, oh, it's me, I did this, I'm doing this, and good news is I can fix it.
Right. So a lot there. Life happens for us, not to us. And I've had some really interesting conversations on parasites in the last several episodes, one of them being that perhaps this is a naturally occurring phenomenon because of those maybe negative thoughts, those things that we're having, or they're addressing something because of the opportunity is there. So can we eliminate them without the cleanse, say, the wormwood, and the ways that we know that we can get rid of parasites? Can we also do that by hacking our subconscious?
If you have physical parasites in your body, it's still going to send a signal.
Right. So,
I mean, yeah, mentally we can change our mind. There are thought forms that aren't so great that sometimes environmentally we're accustomed to, or maybe we're watching the news or a stupid movie that's really bad, or music. There's a lot of entrainment that happens with all of these things, entertainment, programming, television, all these things that create an environment within the frequency of what we're exposed to that we don't even know is seeping in sometimes, or we do. And there's those kind of parasites. There's electronic parasites, meaning G and all the towers and that kind of stuff that can lower frequency and cause problems to disrupt the hormones. But physical, like worms, bugs, whatever that are in the body have to die.
Life is interesting. I most definitely noticed a full life change and across the board when I got rid of the television and when I stopped listening to music when I was driving, and I just stopped putting in things that I knew were programmed in a frequency that wasn't really good for my health. The 440 versus 432 and all that we could get into. But as soon as I said, you know what, if I'm going to listen to something, I'm only going to listen to these frequencies, which I know are healing frequencies, the solfeggios, and really just focus on only good input. And that also was thoughts, the things that I would notice, like the conversations, the self-talk. I wanted to eliminate all that negative stuff. I just didn't want to hear some of the people in my life that I knew were going to only be putting some of that into. And my life changed. It was something that I was very conscious of. I was like, oh, wait. There's something to this. And layer by layer, as I moved deeper into that thought process, I did realize, I started to learn other things about my health and other ways to take care of myself, and grounding and breath work. And then the biohacking presents itself. So I'm on board 100%. When somebody isn't aware that all of those inputs are affecting them and they come to you, how are you going to set them in the right direction?
As far as changing their
It's
lifestyle?
Obviously, you love your cat. It's obviously a full gamut. There's so much to it. And lifestyle changes aren't just changing what you eat. They aren't just getting your circadian rhythm in check. There's so much to it. And
sunrises.
I've tried sharing this information sometimes, and people look at you after 5 minutes and go, whoa, dude, it's too much. It's overwhelming. So what do you give them first? How do you lead them down this path?
For me, I have found that most people who don't really know a lot about any of this, the best way to start is to get some diagnostics. I do have biofeedback where I can get diagnostics for at least 30 different reports. And it includes parasites, it includes fungus, it includes electronic, it includes hormones. It includes if you need, support to one of your organs or sensitivities to foods or sleep patterns. It goes into so many different things. And what happens is when we get that, a lot of times people are like, well, how did you know that? Just with, that, because I could do it remote. So if they just send me a voice recording and their picture of their biofield, we can see that in the biofield, and we can also detect it through Evox, which will show what parts need more strength and what maybe out of line, what needs to be cleared, all of that through our own sound.
What is Evox?
So Evox detects, all of our voices carry a pattern that will show what is deficient and or what isn't just by our voice. And Evox can detect that. And then we use Rife. So this combination of biofeedback is reading the aura or the field. It uses Evox, and then it has a Rife technology, which will customize frequencies to send back to the person to start making them feel better or getting that alignment to whatever adjustments are required based on the diagnostics. So it's not here's this, like with the whole tones or whatever you were listening to, changing up your music. That's kind of one or done, and it is good, but there may be something specific for you that's really different that we can find out and send that will really steer things in a quicker, faster way. It's never wrong to do what you're doing. That's for sure.
So,
I
was going to say, so you're actually using the Rife from other locations? You're using a Rife machine online, or you're sending them?
I have a Rife in person, but the biofeedback that I have is a combination of all of those technologies into one technology.
Got it.
You really like it, by the way. I'm telling you. But so this, again, it's taken me a while. It took me a minute to find the perfect one because there are some that you have to be in person. I've been a part of that. I've actually been hooked up to Rife's and or biofeedback. Those didn't happen to have diagnostics at all either. So it was just like a clinician who did biofeedback frequencies, and they were a practitioner in that, and they would hook up. I wouldn't know what was going on. I don't know what they're working on. They're like, okay, you're going to do this for 30 minutes or an hour, and then you're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to do it again. And I would, my left brain, I'm like, I want to know what's happening. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know why you're sending that in. Maybe that's just the way I'm made. But with this software that I found, it actually tells you what's out of balance, how long it's been there. Sometimes it can give you a lot more on like it, if it's been maybe something that you incarnated into, part of your DNA, maybe it's an ancestral thing. Can that be cleared? Absolutely. So we're told that you can't, but you can. But yeah, I'll get all that information and then we send the frequencies back. And then I usually do a consultation. If someone wants me to, I suggest the first time at least to go over the reports because they are a little bit hard to understand if you don't know what you're looking at. A lot of colors, a lot of charts. Once you've done it once, you pretty much go, oh, that's this. This is better. This is worse. I need to work on that. But as a naturopath, I'm also looking at the reports and going over for you. So I'm not just a clinician going, here you go, you're on your own, have a good time, and we send you the frequencies. But I'm going to look at it and say, hey, you know what? You might be better if you do a parasite cleanse. You might be better if you get out in the sunshine in the morning and get grounded and take your shoes off. Maybe you need to do a cold bath. Maybe you need ozone. Maybe you need red light therapy. Maybe you need a vitamin D. I don't know, fill in the blank depending on what it says. And I'll even look at scheduled play. You're working too much. You're not sleeping. You are heightened on these hours of your sleep with cortisol or whatever. And so there's that piece too, where I'm not just going to leave someone on their own. I'm going to give that person homework or play work because it also gives them a little bit of responsibility and ownership into, taking this like for real. And it's not something you have to keep doing forever, but it's kind of like training wheels on a bike. When you were a kid, did you have those little wheels that go on the back of your bike? You don't need those when you're, 20, 30 years old. But at the beginning, to get your rhythm and to remember, we're bringing frequency to the table. We're clearing the biofield and we're amping it up to a higher frequency. Sometimes it takes a little to get there, 2 or 3 scans. And then the more homework that you're actually doing in your practice, the faster you're going to get there. And then your body basically goes, oh, this is the new me. This is the new mentality. This is the new feeling that I feel. I can get out of bed in the morning. I feel a little more energy. I'm getting a little more balance. I'm not as emotional. I thought this was crazy and there's no way anyone can do this long distance because the doctor who did it to me was in Mississippi and I was in Louisiana. And he was like, oh, I got this new stuff I want to work on you. Can you be a guinea pig? And I was like, dude, you're like 4 hours away, whatever, and I just thought that's ridiculous. And he said, let me get your stuff. I got it from him. I kind of forgot about it. And then like 2 or 3 weeks later, I was like, hey, did you do that thing? When'd you find out about it? And he's like, oh, I forgot. I'll get to it. I'm sorry. I'm going out of town, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, weeks later, I'm like, come home, go sit in my living room. Dude, I was like, oh, I got to sit down. And I just got like tired and I started feeling like really heavy, and I do not sleep during the day. I do not sleep with lights on. Kids are coming in. I got 5 kids in and out, dogs, animals, like lights are on. Like no way do I ever take a nap in the day. I just haven't been able to ever do that. Sleeping sitting up. Like my husband does it all the time. Never been able to do. I'm literally asleep sitting up 4 hours while all this stuff is going on.
Frequencies.
And when
you're listening to frequencies, and that's what's induced this.
No, I'm not listening to anything. I'm just walked in my living room coming home from work and was going to take a quick break. And all of a sudden, I got tired and I fell asleep sitting up. And I woke up that night. I looked to grab my phone and went to text the guy and say, hey, did you do it? But he had already texted me at 1:55 and said, hey, I'm about to start. Totally knocked me out. I 2 times that happened to me. The third time, I had the opposite effect, where I got up and I was just like cleaned the entire house. I mean, I was cleaning out cabinets. I was cleaning my garage. I was throwing away, stuff that the kids' clothes that wouldn't fit them anymore. And I'm like giving everything to Goodwill. And I was like, I had cleared so much that I had energy, and what I find is some people don't get sleepy and tired. Some people do get energy. Some people will dream. I always tell people, if you're going to do it, we usually do it at night the first time on purpose. And I say, put a journal next to your bed every single night for the next 2 weeks, because this is going to keep happening for it lasts about 2 weeks.
Just clarify me. What are you talking about? We're not talking about listening to frequencies, or what are we talking about? Happens.
The customized frequencies that we send back from the remote biofeedback
has this effect.
Yes.
Got it.
They're sent long distance to the person. And once the machine turns off, you will still be vibing for about 7 to 10 days, sometimes 14 days, depending on diet,
So the Rife machine is 4 hours from you, and he's sending it via...
Not a Rife machine, it's biofeedback. Okay. And he's 4 hours from me, and it is affecting me.
Okay, this is mind-boggling.
I know, for me too. And then I really still didn't believe it, right? So I did this thing that I do where I'm like, okay, God, what? Mm-hmm. And I just kind of left it. And then I'm driving my Jeep one day. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And my satellite goes out for my Jeep. So there's an 800 number, and I call and I'm like, hey, for some reason this is over. I don't know what's going on. And they're like, okay, turn the car off, do this. The guy's in India. And he's like, I'm going to send you this beam, and this is going to happen, and then we're going to reboot you or whatever. And I was like, you're in India. I was like, okay. So he did whatever, and he's like, now turn your Jeep on, now turn your radio on. Oh, my stuff's back on there. And I was like, okay. And then later that night, I go home, my direct TV was out. And there's like 800 number thing, blah, blah, blah. So I call, same thing. This guy, I think he was in Singapore. And I'm like talking. They barely speak English. I'm like, help me. This isn't working. They're like, turn this off, do this, unplug it. We're going to send this beam to you. And then after that was all done, I sat there for a second. I was like, that's what's going on. Like, we're doing this all the time. We're doing this as we're talking right now. We're streaming. It doesn't, we don't see everything that makes this come alive and what we able to record while you're in Hollywood and I'm here. But this is the stuff of technology that we have all the time. It's just a different way to use what we're using in a good way instead of maybe, a nefarious way, which they've used that too.
So you are very familiar with the term targeted individual.
Absolutely. I was in Montauk from 73 to 76.
Yeah. I am 100% convinced I was targeted in Southern California at around 2016, 2017. And that kind of led me to the realization that somebody else can get in my head. And I haven't had...
Voice to God tech. You can look it up on the internet, Voice to God tech or Skull to God tech, where they put voices in your head and make you think you're hearing things that may be God or it could be you or whatever. They can turn it to whatever you want.
So I haven't had this conversation with a lot of people because most people aren't ready for it and would just assume, yeah, dude, you were going crazy, or the copious amounts of marijuana you were smoking were having an effect on your psychology and you were hallucinating, which I was definitely open to at the time. That, I've smoked too much marijuana and I've put myself in this own place, but I took certain steps to eliminate that and realized, no, there was something else going on. And I went through my own personal battle at that time, which led me to a much better space in the long run. So I guess I'm open to divine intervention and in my case, I believe that there was some divine intervention that allowed me to deal with what I was going through and separate myself from certain activities and actions. And I'm not necessarily giving the government the power, or somebody within the government or any of these agencies that have the power to do that power and authority over me. I just know what was going on at the time. And I wasn't aware of the possibilities.
Yeah, no, I talk about that on my blogs and I put it on my Facebook pages and whatever. Most of the time it gets taken down, or I'm told that it's not true and they censored, and they took my whole website down. They took my YouTube channel down. And at one point I had to start completely over because I was telling the truth about all this stuff. But even with this thing that happened a while back, I would be working with people who were very, very, very anti that. And then one day I would just be talking to them in passing and they were like, oh yeah, I got it. And I was like, wait, what? I mean, this is a person who was like all over campaigning against it. And after about the 7th or 8th person within a few days, I was like, what made you do it? All of them had the same answer. I was driving down the road and I heard, it's okay. What's the point? It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. All of them heard the same thing. There's also been campaigns for unaliving groups of people who they all hear, what's the point? Why am I here? I just, all just really, really dreadful things. And it's true. And I think a lot of the people who aren't here and or even like the riots and different things, those are all done. This is all documented. You can go, it's live on the CIA Gov. My dad was a part of Montauk, which I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Stranger Things, but there are satellites that do these things. He wasn't aware of what they were part of, but I know that they were working on, they would aim it at a forest of animals, and the animals would all come in the city and just sit in the middle of the city like zombies and not know how they got there. They would turn it off and they would all flee. They were using it on the soldiers and the barracks and different things. There's a lot of really dark stuff that we can come above when we don't participate in certain things that can get us into those lower frequencies. But yeah, it's a real
So
thing.
are we open to, and can we use the term demonic possession?
Yeah. It's a thing. I don't know if they're the same thing. Voice to God is technology, and it's something that is in the hands of people who cause harm. Wouldn't it be cool if they were like, you are so loved, everyone's loved, and you have a destiny, and train people to that?
So I actually had the thought process and was going through, why would somebody do this? Why could somebody do this? And I started to think about CERN and these different subjects where I go, okay, what rational human being could facilitate some of the things that we know could have the endings or do have the effect that they do? And I was wondering if those individuals had to be under the influence of some demonic entity themselves, because I couldn't rationalize what would make me do this to my worst enemy.
Yeah, it's I want to use conscious language. Yeah. It's very for someone like us we're heart centered and we love people and we want the best for humanity. So it's very like, what, for me and probably for you, because we want the best for humanity. We want the best for the world. I mean, we can get into the politics of stuff too. And it's like, you can see it on the television just the other night where it's like one group's like clapping for a guy who doesn't have cancer anymore and a kid who wants to be a police officer. And the other people are just like, it's like, what's going on with y'all? And I love everybody. And also it's hard to.
Yeah. I have a profound way of thinking about, not left versus right, but good versus evil. And if you're a spiritual person, I don't think you can really not acknowledge that there is some kind of spiritual warfare going on, and there always has been. And whether or not we were in tune with it or paying attention to it or knew that that was going on at all, maybe in the last few years, more and more people have become aware of it because of the sheer volume of this despair.
They're overplaying their hand big time. And two things I'll tell you is on biofeedback, there is a psychic page or a spiritual page, and it will show if cords need to be cut, if there's entities involved, if there's dark energies involved, if you are targeted in any way, and we can clear that.
And this is from the aura, from the photo, from the
aura and the evox. And what I have found is a lot of people who do participate in drugs and alcohol lower their consciousness so low that, because entities are at 25 or less, and if we get that low, then basically we've handed over the keys to our biofield, and it's basically it's consent to them being a part of these of us being a part of these lower vibrations or these entities. So I'll ask the person, hey, do you do this or this or this, and or chemicals of any kind, like even cleaning supplies will lower the vibe, herbicides, pesticides, chemtrails, all these things lower. So there is that access. And that's why I think there's so much of this going on, is like they want to lower everything. So we're at such a low spot that all these things can come and play with us, and we can be so confused, cancel clear, to not have like the best outcome. The other thing I'll tell you is, I don't know if you're familiar with David Hawkins, but he has a scale of consciousness, right? Most of humanity isn't even at 200, which is the wake up. When I started working with people with the field, I would notice I do what I call a soul audit test, where we can see how big their field is, where they are on the consciousness map. And what I notice is people who are higher in consciousness, like 200 and above, their field is about 4 to 5 feet. The higher you go, the broader that goes. Some people have tested up to 20 feet and they're way up there in consciousness. And then the people who are like less than that, 100 is addiction, or anything lower, it starts to get manipulation, control, all of that. Their field is like this big, if not inverted. And what that means to me is we have seen like, or I don't know if you have, but I've seen the pictures and the videos where plants will like mooch off of other plants through the root system or whatever, or they'll freely give. Some of them want to give, but some of them just take. And like our fields are transferable, and people will siphon off people to survive because they can't create their own, which is why they use entrainment and television and all these things, because they have no influence. They are inverted. So their only way to control is to use this technology to make everybody do what they want, because their voice can't get them to do anything. If you listen to people and you're like, oh my God, I resonate with you, just like I met you, and I'm like, dude, I feel like I've known you forever. Some people are just like that, and they're from their heart, and you're like, that's an authentic person. I can resonate with that. I'd listen to him, listen to what he says, versus someone else. Like, I don't want to name people, but I'd be like, no matter what they say, it could sound good technically, and they're saying the right thing, and you're literally just like, bullshit. Yeah. And or the mayor, governor of California, who's now got a podcast, and he's just like, yeah, I'm all for I'm like, you're a liar,
so
dude. It's like,
you touched on something there, that yes, our fields affect each other, and that just made me instantly think about 6 feet. 6 feet.
Yeah.
During
exactly 100%. 100%.
During this propaganda psyop.
Yes.
What an important part of that was. And we saw where I was at, and we go back to the point in the conversation when you were talking about extreme discomfort. Where I was at, I was in Malibu, California, one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived. Most beautiful place I've ever lived. My life is very good. But the absolute terror in most people's eyes, lives, minds, beings, movement, and just the sheer nature of what we were going through in COVID at the height of the pandemic and the restrictions was undeniable. It was undeniable. I refused to wear a mask. I wouldn't participate in the things that I encountered going to the grocery store, trying to go to the beach, going to do my normal things. It was absolutely mind-boggling. To the hardware store. And I was like, wow, man, like, I know back in Florida, it's not like this. And even though I did come back and I experienced plenty of pockets where here it was very similar, it was just so entrenched there. And I couldn't believe it had changed the entire town for me so much. And the entire, like you said before, my home life, I knew. I was like, all right, it's time to go.
Yes. Yeah. And we have a place in Destin, and we would get out of Louisiana quite often because it was just so, the quarantine and then the masks, and just like mentally, I was just like, I don't like, that's not going to help you. Like, I still don't get how people don't compute that a mask does. I mean, I worked in surgery. I know what they pump in oxygen on purpose for those wearing the mask so nothing comes out. It's not so something can't come in. It's the opposite. And they would make up for it with lots and lots of oxygen in that room so we could breathe and people could do surgery. I didn't do surgery, but I was witnessing it. And so we would leave to go to the beach and just to get out and to actually be where normal people are, where people weren't doing that. And I still won't go to stores like Whole Foods or Target or anywhere that mandated it. Because even in Florida, we walked in Whole Foods and they said, oh, you have to. And I'm like, no, there's no mandate. And they're like, well, we have one. I'm like, well, I'm never coming back. And I just won't. And when I just went to Hollywood a couple weeks ago, do you know, at the airport, people were still doing it. I'm like, what is going on? Like, so
yeah, Broward County, where I'm at here, is actually the blue county in Florida, if you want to put it that way. And it is very ingrained in the county's politics. And it was absolutely disruptive. It was definitely, for myself, somewhat mind-boggling to come back here and be like, wait a minute, we don't tell people what to do in Florida. We just know each other and the sovereignty of the individual. And everybody carries a gun here, and everybody's a little bit off their rocker. Like, it's not the place you do that. And when I came back and I went to my niece's soccer game and they wanted me to wear a mask, I was like, Are you are you crazy?
Outside.
I'll go
What?
stand outside the fence and watch with my dog who's here. Yeah, it was definitely an insane time where you saw like the vibration level definitely was a little lower on the mass scale than I would have thought ahead of COVID, and maybe that was one of the most enlightening things about the entire thing.
Yeah, like I said, I was a big part of. We worked with DeSantis and with the Texas governor because they had approached me with a 100-page bill here in Louisiana because they were trying to keep the kids from being forced to do all that. And I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even sure. I'll look into stuff and looked over pages of things, and they were busing people from the campuses, basically telling them if you don't get this, you can't finish school, which is BS. And so we brought in Dr. Malone, Peter McCollin, we brought in Robert Kennedy, and, finally we got everyone on board to pass this so people wouldn't be forced, especially kids. And then our governor was like, oh, yeah, I know better, and like overrid it anyway. Like, even after everyone voted, and they're supposedly representatives of us, and we had everyone but two people, and they can just go around and go, never mind. So I think it's better now. And there's been a lot of wake up, and people are seeing, and even people I never thought would see are seeing. But for those who still aren't, I don't want to say I don't understand because I don't want that to be my standing wave, but I choose to understand.
Well,
I really choose to.
academia and the political scene and your location in California and New York and all of these places that we're probably thinking of first and foremost when we say these things was captured long ago. And I guess you can't really expect anything else from people that were successful within those systems. And, I guess it's the nature of the beast. You surround yourself with it for so long, it becomes normal, and you don't really, I guess, second guess or even think about questioning some of it when it, all comes down on us at such a, I guess, an extremely, what's the word for it? I mean, the amount of money that they put into that propaganda campaign and the amount of energy and resources that they put into it, it was definitely nothing like anything we had seen in our lifetime. I mean, they tried COVID, 20 times before with the swine flus and all the HN1, all the other things that we've seen before, and none of them had anything on this one. This was the big one. So if you were part of academia, part of the political circles, or you had gone through the system long enough, this must have been terrifying, and it was hard to question, especially for the first 6 months to a year. I've almost given passes to a lot of them because it wasn't the people that I would have expected. And you're right. At this point, you would think you've had time to come around.
Well, with all the evidence that's been brought out and all the disclosure that's happened, even in the first however many days in this administration, not to mention in this last year, where it was still coming out, in 2 years, 3 years, and the deaths and all the people who left the medical field. It's one thing if you're just don't know and you made a mistake, because I have a lot of friends who made a mistake and they really feel bad about it, and now they're going through it, and or they're not here anymore, or their family members aren't here anymore, and they're mortified and scared that they won't be here anymore, and they're trying to undo what they did by those mistakes because they didn't do the research. But it's another level when we present all the evidence and we explain, and there are loved ones gone, and they still like hone in even harder and dig in their heels. Like, that part is really difficult, to be honest.
It's definitely full programming, definitely fully programmed, and 4 to 6% of the population is lost forever. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Right.
I
Yeah.
haven't, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, what's interesting about that is that was shared before COVID, and it rang true. And the communities that latched onto that number initially shared it for different reasons, or were thinking about it applying to our belief systems, and the fact that no matter how much evidence you were to put in front of somebody, that they would never escape the programming that they had, from birth or from early childhood.
I'm so glad I'm not a part of that 4% or 6%. And also, isn't it crazy and difficult and like hurts my heart to whenever I see people there? It's just because it's like, I want for them. There's so much potential. They have so much gifting. They have so much to give and so much to receive, and they're just not
Yeah, and
participate
we
in.
are powerful beings. We are absolutely. You also acknowledged something in the very beginning of the conversation. You said that we are creations and we create. And if you're not in line with that, that probably plays a pivotal or a crucial role in your belief system and whether or not you can actually change your mind or change your beliefs based upon new evidence.
Well, I think a lot of it too is ego, you know, because I am fine with being wrong. As a matter of fact, when people ask me, like, what do you think about this? I'll say, well, this is what I think. And also I've been very wrong before. So I'm open to new information if you have it, and, or, I can change my mind by tomorrow or today. But for some people, they can't be wrong. They've either spent a whole career in that being wrong, or they've invested heavily, or something depends on it, or, whatever, or maybe it's none of those things and they just have to be right. And it's
It's
weird.
easier to convince a man he's been fooled, or it's easier to fool a man than to convince him he's been fooled, right?
Yeah.
So your clients and people that are interested in this process, they go to your website, they read your book, they come to you for a one-on-one.
Yes, I have the book is available. Like I said, if you do get it, please, whoever's watching, please report your miracles because you will have them. It's 100% guarantee. I'm telling you. If you're interested in biofeedback, then yeah, let's set up an appointment. And I just got to get some information from you. Again, it's all long distance and we can help whoever's watching. If you are someone who, you've got some snags, it doesn't have to be physical. It could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be partnership, it could be abundance, finances, career, whatever. All of them work together. And so if you have a problem in health, it's going to affect finances. And not because you don't feel good. I'm saying because there's a frequency to this that affects that. If you're in a lack, poverty kind of frequency, that also affects this, and partnership. I mean, all of it. You can't pee in the pool and hope it doesn't get everywhere. That's my favorite saying. And, so all energy is just energy, and there are equations that go out and there's equations that magnetize back in. And if we can make the equations really, really good and powerful and strong, then we're going to get good matches. And so we just want to see what needs to be cleared, what needs to be beefed up, and how we can help get you more centered and aligned and abundant and living your life and being with the love of your life and being where you're supposed to be and the right time and the right season. Because right now, more than ever, I think people are really questioning, like, why am I here? What's the point? What are we doing? And this helps a lot. It really gives you a lot of guidance, some steps, seeing some things that you didn't see before, and all of those
So do you
things.
start with a questionnaire then?
No, I don't want to know anything up
Really?
front. I do get their name, birthday, and I get their voice and their picture, but I don't want to hear any stories because when I send them the reports, I want them to be confirmed that this is real. And usually people are like, oh my gosh, that says that, that shows that. How did you know that? And I'm like, because they didn't tell me anything. And my doctor's like that too. He's like, don't tell me anything. He comes in, he tests everything. And he's like, oh, it's the thyroid. Oh, it's your boyfriend. Oh, whatever. And he's really good at it. So it's
That's
fun.
fascinating. That's fascinating. I had a chiropractor back in the early 2000s change my life. I went in with the old, neck jam. I can't turn my head. I locked up, and he took care of me in the moment. And he did a couple things. He did the stress test on me, but then he kind of changed my thinking when he was like, you don't need a doctor as much as you need to take care of yourself, right? And I was like, all right, I do know that. I
That's
do know that.
that's awesome. Very cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I mean, we could probably take this conversation for another hour about all kinds of different things, but I think people need to go to your YouTube channel, go to your website, start doing a little research on their own, and then if they're interested, definitely reach out. It's definitely got me thinking.
Awesome. Well, I hope so. And if I can help with anything, let me know. And I'd actually love to have you on my show if you're ever busy or not busy and
Absolutely,
have some time.
and we'll do it. We'll definitely.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Dr. Sharnael.